So this panel is going to be discussing the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Lebanon. What I'm trying to do with SET, Startup Ecosystem Think Tank, is delve into researching entrepreneurial ecosystems, their strengths, their weaknesses, and designing roadmaps for nations moving forward. From all of this research, we understand that ecosystems are not born alike, but there are certain lessons that nascent ecosystems can extract from others that have boomed. I mean, it's interesting that there was Israel, Yozma in 1993, and then there was Singapore, TIF in 1998, and then today we have Circular 331, 2014. So, is this our year? Saleh is a serial entrepreneur. He co-founded BizRate and then later Shopzilla, which was sold for $500 million. He is currently the managing partner of Leap Ventures, the late-stage venture capital in Lebanon, and he can tell us a bit more about what they're doing.
Thank you for having me. We are a later stage venture capital fund, Series B mostly, where our job is to take companies that have demonstrated that there's a product that has a demand, that has a market, and help them achieve hypergrowth. So we invest between 3 and 7 million, all the way potentially up to $10 million in companies to achieve that. We have a fund in Lebanon right now, which is a 331 fund that we just closed, 71 million. Probably the second closing we will end up at around 80.
Paris Delatraz is an ex-investment banker with over 20 years of experience under his wing. He's currently professor of entrepreneurship at IE in Madrid, and he's heading their venture lab. How about you tell us a bit more about venture lab and your role at IE?
Thank you. Yes, Venture Lab is where IE Business School accelerates their top student-led projects. IE is a little bit different to most business schools. We were, over the last 3 years, #1 in Europe. The diversity is probably #1 in the world. 95% of our students are not Spanish, even though we're based in Madrid. And entrepreneurship is one of our key values. So we actually organize every year about 16 events on entrepreneurship around the world.
Okay. Janet Jakiri is co-founder of the Levant International Startup Association and is the corporate development, VP of corporate development for the Alexa. Can you tell us a bit more about Lisa?
Sure. So Lisa was actually co-founded by a team out of Dialexa. Mark Haidar, who is Lebanese, asked us if we were interested in his vision, which was to empower entrepreneurs in the Middle East and give them access to successful entrepreneurs in the US, help them with funding, and also help them with a go-to-market strategy in the United States. And so what we saw was an opportunity to help stimulate innovation in the Levant region, and we want to start with a pilot in Lebanon, to be able to get entrepreneurs excited about ideas that may not necessarily be, Lebanon may not necessarily be ready for that innovation, but that the US market would be, so that we spur basically innovation within Lebanon and have them give them access to the United States.
So Rabia Khoudi is the managing partner of Melwood Capital, a merchant bank that specializes in structuring private investments in the Middle East and Turkey, and he's also the chairman of MEVP, Middle East Venture Partners, one of the very first VC firms in the Middle East. Would you like to tell us a bit more about?
Sure, thank you. Middle East Venture Partners, we're probably the largest VC fund in the region that is not government sponsored. 4 funds. Firm started in 2009. It was a It came out of what was created in Dubai as part of my portfolio. We created the Arab Business Angels Network in 2006. When we called it Angels Network, people thought we were a religious organization, so we had to change the name in Arabic to make it a bit more palatable to the local taste. The fund, MVP, was founded in 2009 by Walid Hanna. I joined day one as chairman. We manage 4 funds, 2 Lebanon-only funds. One is an IC331 fund, $71 million. First fund that got approved by the central bank. We started investing in April, already invested in 6 companies, deployed $18 million. We also have 2 MENA funds, and we just did our first closing on our second MENA fund, $15 million. Zain Telecom came in as a strategic investor. We obviously like the market. We know how to invest in the market. There's a mistake in the manual that was presented. I don't know who wrote it. We actually don't do seed. We only do Series A. We don't believe that seed actually pays in terms of a return to our LPs. We're money managers. We're here to make money. The ecosystem is important, but my primary fiduciary is to make money for my LPs. Thank you.
So Yasser Akkawi is the founder of K Concept Holding and the editor-in-chief of one of the Middle East leading magazines, Executive Magazine. Can you tell us a bit more?
For those who know Executive Magazine, they know we are an activist publication, so we tend to stick our necks out quite prominently to defend the Lebanon we want to live in as compared to the one that has become. We make entrepreneurs like Mr. Abdir and entrepreneurs like most of the young people in this room our business. Thank you.
Yasser, I have a question for you. Executive Magazine is a publication that has been documenting the evolution of the Lebanese ecosystem ever since its early foundations in, let's say, 2010. And with the new Circular 331, how has the ecosystem evolved over the last 5 years, and where do you see it going?
In fact, even more than 2010. I can tell you, let's say, is an anecdote from 2004, when Eli Khouri from Anghami, who a lot of you know about, called me about another Eli Khouri from Mupra. And he goes, Yasser, it was a Friday night. Yasser, I need $6 million. There's a guy called Eli Khouri that's leaving tomorrow to Silicon Valley. What can we do to keep him? Can you help me raise $6 million? Of course, I picked up the phone and I called the usual suspects in Lebanon. And they laughed at me. I mean, like, $6 million for what? Wupra? Like, what are you talking about? And of course, Wupra, Eli Khouri left, and he came back, and then he left again, I guess. And so these are, if you want, a lot of anecdotes that we can find in Executive Magazine, documenting the difficulties and the challenges we had in promoting entrepreneurship. So nobody was taking them seriously. They were considered like crazy Muppets sitting upside down on a chair and coming up with crazy ideas. Today, something very important happened, which is capital. You know, when capital comes in, it brings with it brings with it a lot of risk mitigation, a lot of efficiencies that LPs require and GPs are responsible for. In a nutshell, that's all I'm going to say now. You know, I will answer your questions later.
This is a question for the VCs. Now, with this very big injection of capital, just to give you a bit of context, the injection of capital is almost $400 million for a population of 4 million. So you can imagine how big that is. So capital is no longer a problem. But my question for you, is there a problem of deal flow? Are there enough entrepreneurs in Lebanon?
Go ahead.
Ari?
One may think there is enough capital. Right now, the $400 million of the central bank is good, but it's nowhere near enough. And but I'm not worried, because what we're going to do, hopefully, with those 400 million or more, because every year it's increasing. It's about 3% of the assets of the banks, their own assets. But what we hope to do with those 400 million is to attract more capital, more smart capital into Lebanon to invest in companies. when somebody says, just like you were talking about the $6 million that Eli Khoury needed back in 2004, companies, irrespective of the fact that we are in a small country, Lebanon is 4 million people, companies, when they need to grow, need the same amount of money as companies anywhere else, except maybe that Lebanon salaries are a bit lower and Dubai is super expensive, as my partner Vicky Vidia said in his earlier statement. So when you are trying to make a company, to build a company, you need a lot of money. A lot of money. You need to be able to deploy that money, but you need a lot of money. So for us, and I'm sure for MEVP, it's the same problem, is yes, we have money, okay? We have funds and we're going to deploy that money, but we wish we had more money. We wish we had more money, specifically us at the B stage, where in fact more money means less risk. More money means that companies can actually make mistakes. And up till now, the real problem has been that companies weren't able to make mistakes. If you just have enough money to do what you're supposed to do, if you make one mistake, you're dead.
Let me cover two things you mentioned. First, capital, right? IC31, I think, was a landmark model. It's by far the largest VC pool in the Arab world, from poor Lebanon. I mean, the VC money available in Lebanon now is probably 50 times bigger than in Dubai, for example. Just an amazing program. At MEVP, however, we've had a relationship with the Lebanese banks dating back since 2010. Before IC31, we already had 12 Lebanese banks invested with us. More money brings, a lot of challenges. However, I think, we, Leap, Berytech, need to also be, professional, cooperate correctly, and not bid up valuations.
Why are you obsessed about bidding up valuations?
Because
why are you guys all obsessed constantly, systematically?
Yes.
You're obsessed about bidding up valuations.
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
The first mistake I do in my business is actually invest. Okay? The second mistake I do is actually agreeing on a valuation. My objective is to make a return for my bank LPs. If I want to reduce the risk and increase the return, I have to pay a lower valuation. It's very simple.
No.
This is private equity, this is venture capital.
Absolutely not. The valuation is one parameter.
How many companies?
Adding value to the company to turn the company from a potential 10 million sale to a 300 million sale is what you want to achieve. This is what we need to achieve. It is not taking 25% of the company for a $5 million valuation or taking a 25% of the company for a $4.5 million valuation. That is pretty much irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. If you're going to take that company that is worth 5 million and you're going to turn it into a company worth 15 million, that's one thing. If you're going to turn it into a company worth 300 million, that's something else. That is what we need to achieve.
I'm actually talking out of experience and track record.
Yes, you're talking as a financier.
We would love to have you as investors and we'll show you how to make money.
Talking about money always sparks some controversy.
Let's talk about the deal flow.
Yeah.
You mentioned deal flow.
Yeah.
The wet dream of a VC company is having unlimited deal flow at zero valuation. Okay? So, we have not had an issue with deal flow at MEVP. We're the first fund in IC31 who actually invested. We've already invested in 6 companies, deployed $18 million. Obviously, we'd like to see more deal flow. I mentioned previously to the second panel that there isn't enough hardware companies coming out of Lebanon. I think
I fully agree, yes.
Sorry?
I fully agree.
Yes, very important. We tend to, at MEV also, because we have a certain way to invest, we don't take early stage risk. We don't think that actually pays in terms of exit. We don't think you'll actually make money. Maybe some people will have a different perspective on that and they can take as much early stage as they want, and when they reach Series A, we'll agree on a valuation and we'll take them to the next level.
I'll just speak as somebody who's worked in the finance industry but decided to go into the startup stage. I think it's really hard to create an ecosystem, particularly in the innovation space. If you truly want to be innovative, you have to take risks. So maybe you're not the right investor.
It is about measured risk.
Yeah, but
something
you
called
can't-
risk reward.
So, yeah, no, I understand, and,
And
I,
by the way,
I understand
I'm
the efficient frontier
I'm an
and all
investment
that.
banker, done about $6 billion transaction.
No, that's fine, but I think we're here to talk about startup Lebanon. So you are probably not
We
the
are the
right
largest
investor.
investors in Lebanon. We have about 15 companies in Lebanon.
I think what Janet is trying to say is that
I
there
think-
needs to be room for innovation.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So you need to be able to, let's say, lose 15 million in order to maybe make 1 billion.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So then you need to go to Silicon Valley and
I don't
spend
think-
time with those investors
Absolutely.
and then tell them that their idea is stupid.
Look, we invested in Shahia. We negotiated exit with Cookpad. Cookpad is a public company, Japanese public company, $1.2 billion market cap. We got a 6x on our money. And if the entrepreneurs had a bit more heart...
6x?
Well, yes, but where do you live, man? I'm just really confused.
I live in the United States, which was
Well,
what-
that's fine. You have, in the US, you have an option on an IPO exit. We do not. We have exits, only strategic sales. Our exits are capped. We cannot IPO in the region.
So then
We
how
can-
would you, okay, so I understand that. So then how would you bridge the gap between not having an exit strategy and then
No, we do
evaluation?
have an exit strategy. We do not have an IPO valuation strategy.
But I don't
very
think
different
most
thing.
startups here in the United States are actually IPOing.
No, they're not, but IPOs set valuation levels.
I mean, Facebook bought, WhatsApp for $1 billion.
I understand, but Facebook is a unicorn. We don't have unicorns, thank God, because I think people
Okay, so
invest in
let's talk
unicorns
about how to
have
create the
overpaid.
unicorn though, right?
We are the largest VC company in Lebanon. We don't have a problem neither with portfolio nor with the deal flow.
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to, what I'm trying to encourage you, okay, I appreciate your experience. What I'm trying to encourage you is we are here to discuss startup Lebanon.
Absolutely.
How do we stir
Let me give you a
this
couple of examples. Let me
ecosystem?
give you-
How do we change things?
Let me give you a
Because,
couple of examples.
We want to make things better.
One of the largest Lebanese firms that has probably the most visitors is a company called Anghami. Anghami is basically a MENA Spotify. 11 million subscribers, okay? 2.5 times the population of Lebanon, okay? We invested in them at the early stage. When they grew, we're doing a new round, okay? We have a company called Bookwitty. It's a Lebanese company that sells books internationally. Bookwitty has a revenue level of $33 million. Bookwitty sells 4,500 books a day on average on Amazon. So we know the market. However, our approach again is it is important to fund the ecosystem. It's important to grow it. But my primary perspective is to make money for my LPs. We're an asset management company that actually focuses on VC in the ICT sector.
Rabia, so after Shahia
Yes.
got their kafalat loan,
Yes.
they went on to you for...
Yes, they only got around from us. That was it.
What was MEVP's role from investment to exit in Shahia's success story?
And Shahia is a small office in Hamra, 3 entrepreneurs, visionaries. In Ramadan, Shahia had 5 million unique visitors. Shahia is by far larger than any TV channel around food. Shahia is one of the leaders on YouTube when it comes to food. And Cookpad controls 85% of the social media food market in Japan. Wanted to expand, they started buying companies. With Shahia, they had access to 150 million people in the MENA region that are on the internet.
But what
83
role did
million.
MEVP play from investment to exit?
Well, first we trusted their vision. We helped them focus. They wanted to actually move into other things. We told them focus on growth. Some of your colleagues before in the previous panel said, why not focus on growth before you focus on profitability? Shahia was very important to create this community. 75% of Shahia's users are actually Saudi women who like to exchange recipes in Arabic on their website. Who could reach Saudi women? We did, with Shahia.
Okay, so we've briefly, not so briefly, gone over the
Not so briefly.
the capital pillar of an ecosystem. So there's many pillars to an ecosystem. One being capital injection, and another very, very important pillar being academia. Academia, as in covering universities, R&D units. What VCs look for when entering a new market, one of the most important factors they look for is how strong is the academic, how strong are they, is their academic sector. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about it. about how IE is playing a global role in shaping entrepreneurship?
Okay, I'm not a normal academic because I was an investment banker for 21 years. But getting back to Henri's point here, a lot of people always ask you, why is Silicon Valley different to the rest of the world? Because wherever you go, whether it's the UK or Europe or the Middle East, you find that everybody's looking towards Silicon Valley. And I think the reality of Silicon Valley is that the people investing in Silicon Valley, they've been entrepreneurs. They're not financiers. It's a different mindset. And that is the role of academia. Academia is not going to create entrepreneurs. That's the last thing you want to do. And I think if you listened earlier, there was a presentation by this gentleman from Inventis, the ex-finance minister. He said that in Lebanon, people don't become entrepreneurs out of need. That is a very important thing. Because when you become an entrepreneur out of need, and I live in Spain where we have 26% unemployment, and now for the first time entrepreneurship is in fashion, it's dangerous when you decide, I'm going to become an entrepreneur because I have a need.
But is it, I mean, if there is no need, there is a state of too much comfort, and then you're not pushed to become an entrepreneur. That's the strength of the Lebanese.
It's not a question of comfort, it's a question of mentality. The Lebanese mentality, and I spend a lot of time in the Middle East, the Lebanese mentality is one of ambition. It's one of commercial. They're alive in terms of they're wanting to do things. They're very comfortable with uncertainty, and sure that maybe that comfort with uncertainty comes from need, but it's not like I don't have a job, that's why I have to become an entrepreneur. There's this passion to succeed. And it's a passion that is reflected in a lot of different groups around the world. I mean, you take the United States, if you take the top 10 companies in the US run by Hispanic CEOs, 7 are Cuban. They're not Mexican, they're not Argentinians, they're not Spanish, they're Cuban. It's a different mentality. So I think academia can play a very important role in terms of helping young people in particular feel more and more comfortable with uncertainty. And that's the sort of thing that makes you start to think like an entrepreneur. And that's what's necessary, not just in startups, but in big companies today. And then some people will take the plunge. But academia doesn't create entrepreneurs.
So pragmatically, how do you change mindsets in academia? How do you do that?
Getting people comfortable with uncertainty. But we're not going to turn them into entrepreneurs. They have to become that way on their own. We get them to think more like entrepreneurs.
You do that through?
You do that through, getting people out of their comfort zone. If you look at academia today, we are being trained for a predictable world. You get an MBA in most schools, and you are being trained to do regression. You're not being trained to deal with uncertainty. So you've got to give people humanities. You've got to give them critical thinking. You've got to give people all these things that they talked about earlier, an openness. And that's what gets people thinking out of the box.
If I might add something, even with not talking about the entrepreneur as the head of the company, we find that engineers, when they come out of academia here in Lebanon, also don't want to take any risks. They don't want to go to a startup. They're all used to going to a larger company and they have their job and everybody's happy and I can tell daddy and mommy that I've got this really cool, good job, etc. So that's another thing we need to change, not just at the entrepreneur level, at the boss level, but also at the key employee level, to be able to tell them, look guys, you can go into startups. There's a business there. And in fact, even if you just want to be an employee, well, there's no problem going and working for startup A. Even if it folds, there's startup B and C and D, and you can go from one place to another. It's not a problem. And that's something we really need to give in academia today.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, the National Science Foundation in this country spends millions every year getting engineers, graduates from engineering schools, to think more entrepreneurial, because they're too used to being in a predictable world.
Building on that, I think Lebanon can learn from what other countries are doing to train entrepreneurs. Not only that, to open up mindsets to entrepreneurship. While we have a very, very good and robust educational system, it still is a bit old.
Let me just add one thing about the entrepreneur, perspective. At MEVP, in our 25 companies, our average entrepreneur is actually 38 years old. They tend to be professionals who are experts in their field, who are moving their field digitally. We do not see a lot of younger people, and this is actually part of the ecosystem that we need to build. I mean, we're funding with Beritech and hopefully with Leap, Speed as an incubator accelerator to try to grab some of these younger people. And not necessarily to create ventures, because typically the venture yield and incubator accelerator is actually quite low. Incubator accelerators are made to create entrepreneurs actually, and we tend to grab them at their second, third venture and actually make money with them. And I think this is one part of the ecosystem, but again, Lebanon is a bit unique. You rarely see, college dropouts because, socially it's not acceptable. Even people, as you said, who end up in, getting an engineering degree but end up in a startup, again, it's not very acceptable, in society, and we need to change that mindset. And also tolerance for failure, also.
But I will say I do have a lot of empathy, and I understand, particularly Lebanon, like Cuba. Cuba is also a small country. Cuba is also a country that has a lot of education and a lot of talent. And I think the challenge there obviously is political. It's changing a little bit, but I'm also worried about what's going to happen to Cuba and the Cuban people in general. But one of the things that as a Cuban coming here, being here in the United States, I would love to have a list, literally a list of every single Cuban who is working on a startup. Or, I'm actually the weird person that will actually Google someone's name and then put plus Cuba to see if they're Cuban, and I'll add them to LinkedIn. I'll be like, hey, are you Cuban? I was like, because I would like to just meet another Cuban who's working on a startup, right? So that same sort of similar, my path is not very successful because I probably collected like 10 Cubans by doing that. But, what I see for Lebanon and what I think what we should be doing is, first of all, we need the Lisa story to get out, right? And then we need to find the influencers and the Lebanese entrepreneurs, both in the US and in Lebanon, collect them, and then maybe say 100 of them, right? So all of a sudden now we have this collective bridge of Lebanese entrepreneurs, both in Lebanon and here in the United States. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, we don't want to create another LinkedIn, but we also, I think one of the things that we want to be careful is when you ask people, can you be a mentor for this organization? What does that mean? Like, what are they really doing, right? So what we want to do is try to leverage the network in a way that's smart, and being able to either classify startups or ideas by industry so that we actually can help startups. From what I'm gathering is, if we really want to change the system, we need to allow those entrepreneurs in Lebanon to have an outlet to be able to come here to the United States to get the seed funding, to get their ideas funded, not traction, to give them the opportunity to create the next Facebook, the next Pinterest, the next Amazon, and I think that's the vision that we have within Lisa, is to be able to take that talent and then give them access to the United States, either via market, education, and mentorship.
Lebanon is your pilot market?
So it will be our pilot market. Mark Haydar is Lebanese. He's very comfortable with the country, and that's where we feel like will be a good test pilot. I think the next one would probably be Turkey. And then from there, we would hopefully, it'd be great to have a program in every single, country in the Middle East.
Networks are extremely valuable, especially for changing mindsets. It needs to be aided in academia is a very good way to go about changing mindsets, but it also can be done through leadership. And we have a very good example sitting right here. Henri Saile, after selling his company for 500 million, came to Lebanon, and then, your success story gives hope to other entrepreneurs. It's, if he did it, why can't I? And it also helps change mindset. So he's Lebanese, he did it, I can do it. And that's the mindset we need to start to perpetuate in Lebanon. And organizations like Lisa help us doing so by taking entrepreneurs outside, but also by creating the links that they can connect with. This is an entrepreneur, he did it. This is another one, he did it, and she did it. And it's just about changing mindsets.
Excuse me, but do you really want to take entrepreneurs outside? That's a very important question. I mean, yes, in 2004 until 2010, we have seen a lot of entrepreneurs that did not have access to what the Lebanese ecosystem has to offer today. And like Eli Khouri, Wupra, many other entrepreneurs, they had to leave. This doesn't have to happen here. And this is something that everybody touched upon. And Henri said something that maybe was left unnoticed, which is the appetite for risk. And there is a direct correlation between appetite for risk and the nation building exercise. And there's another thing that the governor mentioned in his speech, which is the electronic stock exchange. Today, any economy, and that's why we cannot look at the Lebanese ecosystem and compare it to the American ecosystem. We did not exhaust the extent and the ambition of the LLC, the limited liability company, which allows risk to happen. It's all about allowing risk to happen. And while the regulators keep a very watchful eye over mitigating risk and making sure that the LPs or shareholders do not get hurt, the purpose of an LLC is to allow venture to happen. I mean, if it wasn't for JP Morgan, there wouldn't be electricity, right? So without investing in startups and these disruptive ideas, we won't get anywhere. It has to happen in Lebanon. The LLC has to achieve its potential out of Lebanon. Allocation of risk has to happen in Lebanon. The stock exchange and the nation building value of a stock exchange for any economy has to happen in Lebanon. It's to allow capital to find its way and to bet on beautiful ideas that have potential. Not contribute to enriching the ecosystem and making sure that this entrepreneurship mindset, which basically is sitting and thinking about an interesting idea that's innovative, that contributes to intellectual property, that is scalable beyond Lebanon. And what is it at the end of the day? When Bank Audi opens in Turkey or in Egypt, or Bank of Beirut opens in Germany or in Australia, and I can go on and on. So this intrapreneurship has to be promoted too, to allow young graduates to also contribute to the growth of Lebanese corporate Lebanon by providing them and to supply constant innovative ideas also for the growth of existing companies, while at the same time allowing for youth or even not youth, why not? To also to have a system that allows people like me or like people, younger people like in the room, to give a chance for their project. I've been teaching entrepreneurship for 14 years, and this is exactly what we need. I asked my students, have you ever crossed campus and went to computer engineering? Have you ever crossed campus and went to the electrical engineering? And no one has crossed campus. So it's a culture that has to be embedded. And again, if we don't allow for risk, there will be no interest for any of my students to cross campus because they won't find anything.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but what Lisa is trying to do is not steal away the Lebanese entrepreneurs. It's trying to open up markets for Lebanese entrepreneurs who are established in Lebanon, and then create the bridge and open the market to Lebanon. So you're not trying to steal away our entrepreneurs.
Right, exactly. I mean, same as Cuba, right? The ecosystem is not there yet, right? I mean, we're getting there, we're working on it. But the thing is, if you're an entrepreneur, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow and you're done. So are you gonna sit here and wait for 10 years or 50 years, in our case, to actually get a startup off the ground? Or if you're an entrepreneur in Lebanon, you have an idea and it's a life-changing, world-changing idea, are you just gonna sit there and wait for someone to not give you money because you have this great idea, but you have no traction, right? So
Just comment
comment on this. We've actually deployed at MVP more money than all the funds in Lebanon combined. Just so we give
I
money.
know, but startups need small, we need
understand.
like $1 million bets on ideas to be able to get
We have a system to invest, a way to invest. We like certain verticals. We like certain maturity in entrepreneurs. We do not, we don't advocate something called style drift. When the fund gets bigger, we start doing different things. We are very methodical about how we do things. And we have basically, if you look at, half the companies that you're looking at today have been funded by us.
Guys, it's good, and we need variation. We need variation in investors. We need diversity in investment strategies. That is not bad. Okay, that is not bad. It's actually very good, because there are some businesses that need certain types of investors, other needs other types of investors. What I think is, again, we're talking about this large amount of money. It is not that large. Again, it is not that large, and we're going to work on making it larger by hopefully ensuring that the bets we're making now with the 400 million are going to be good enough to excite other investors who aren't going to be the banks or the central bank or taxpayer money, other private investors to come in and say, this is an environment I want to bet on. That's what we're trying to do.
Building on what Yasser said, the IPO exit option is very, very, very essential in trying to attract smart money.
The only
from outside.
danger, I'm not saying electronic exchanges, but basically you cannot have bought an electronic exchange. With this comes investor democracy, which will allow shareholders, similar to how LPs operate in private equity, to have a say in how the companies are run. And here, it's a regulatory issue. Yes, the Capital Markets Authority in Lebanon is starting to do a good job, and we're starting to see a lot of good news out of the Capital Markets Authority, which will influence or will regulate how the electronic exchange will function. But definitely, due to this romantic relationship between the investor and entrepreneurial ideas, again, like as mentioned in the panel before, it's a feeling that you have, and you bet on it, you follow it, and this will not be lazy money. But with this comes a very big responsibility, of course, which we hope that shareholders won't be lazy either, and will make sure to remind companies, and this will, of course, will affect with much more efficiency on the market itself.
Paris has some very encouraging information for us about Lebanese entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in the Middle East. If you'd like to tell us a bit more about the latest mobile program that you've created in the Middle East.
Yes, 3 years ago, we saw what was going on in the Middle East, and we saw the risk of a lost generation with young people. So we decided to embark on what is the easiest way for someone to become an entrepreneur, is to create an app. And, God forbid we need more apps. But we thought that by getting young people involved in the development of apps, we could change mindsets. So we created a social program, nonprofit, 3 years ago, and today, this last year, we have over 740 teams of app developers and app teams from 22 countries in the Middle East, 60 of which came from Lebanon. And the reality is that most of these, the big majority of these, are going to fail. But we have changed the lives of these people. They see the world differently. Their mindsets are different. They're much more comfortable with uncertainty, with business. And we've given them real hope. And most of these people are probably going to end up in companies, hopefully, because entrepreneurship is not for everybody. But they will also give more back to those companies by having this kind of a mindset. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, we see a lot of potential in Lebanon. The mindset is there. And it's prevalent all over the Middle East. Wherever you go, there is Lebanese mindset present at the board level, at CEO levels, all over the area.
2004 and 2010, we saw, I don't call it this discretionary approach to entrepreneurship. We support them, we don't support them, we don't know. We're looking for outliers or not. So it was really outliers, the ones who made it during this period. Between 2010 until 2 years ago, we followed what we call a compliance-based entrepreneurship ecosystem, where it's a checklist. Okay, we have an incubator, we have an accelerator, we have funds, and now we have it all, and we're going to have it in exchange for that. The next step is, are we going to have a performance-based ecosystem, which is a performance base that is able to perform, that is, again, at the expense of sounding too nationalistic, will be an integral part of this nation-building exercise, that somehow we are pegging on the growth of Lebanon as a driver of the economy. And this is a contribution of the government, of course, who had this vision. Of course, a lot of people in this room, including Samir Karam, played a big role in also contaminating how this big institution, which is the central bank, to embark into building this ecosystem. But again, the performance of this ecosystem is what matters now. How can we put all this into works so that it achieves its potential?
The U.S. did not rule the world because the business community was somewhere and good governance was somewhere else. Same thing in other countries. So
in Lebanon, money talks. Bring the money in and transform the country.
Absolutely. I would like to add one thing, is being part of a civil society is a constitutional right in Lebanon. You're more than welcome to be part of civil society in Lebanon and come lobby yourself.
And I think that the business community is doing its job in pressuring the government to adopt new regulations for good business. And I would ask my friend Salim Zanni, who is, representing the business community.
Being in Lebanon, always I have lived in Lebanon, never left. Yes, we are loving the government. There is a lot of changes that happened during the years, and especially the last 10 years. Otherwise, believe me, we wouldn't be here. And most of the guys of the startups wouldn't be doing what they are doing now if those changes didn't happen. Okay, so you can count on us. We are going to lobby, and we will continue lobbying in Lebanon.
To wrap up, you have to come back to Lebanon.